So day 2 of 3 days to paid. Like I said, my name is Cameron. I'm the director of education. And today we're going to get into forms. That's going to be the big thing that we talk about today. And if you weren't here yesterday, just to give you a quick overview of what we went through, we talked about essential settings. We talked about projects and clients, packages, payment plans, and invoicing. So there was a lot in yesterday. So definitely go back and watch the recording if you were registered for it. And like I said, it'll be on YouTube as well. Today, we're going to be talking about the 5 different form types. We're going to specifically hone in on lead capture forms, contracts, and proposals. Those will be the 3 that we'll really take a deep look at today. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk about combining everything together so you can deliver a seamless experience for your client. And we'll talk about how it looks on the back end to you whenever you send something out, how the client sees it. It's basically going to be the wrap up or putting it all together. So by the end of tomorrow, you should be able to send out your full service to a client. So today we'll touch on the forms. So the goal that we're going to have today is we're going to learn about the 5 form types. We're going to get your lead capture form set up, your proposal set up, and your contract set up. Those are the things that we want to accomplish today. So the first thing that we'll get into, like I said, are the 5 form types. So let's go ahead and jump over into Dubsado. We'll go straight there and we'll go underneath the template section. Now, if you remember from yesterday, when you're in Dubsado, on the left-hand side, you see the template section. This is going to be where you create all of your content. So we're going to look at forms today. Yesterday, we were in packages and payment plans. Today, we're going to look at forms specifically. So this section right here is where all of your base form templates live. We kind of talked about the idea of a base template yesterday, where this is just the starting point of the forms or the templates that you build. So in here, in Dubsado, we have 5 different form types. We have contracts, sub-agreements, questionnaires, proposals, and lead captures. And you can see them across the top up here, the different headers of each section. So in this part of the webinar specifically, what I'm going to do is give you an overview of what these 5 do. And the hopes with this is that when you start getting into Dubsado fully and start experimenting with a lot of things, then you can know which forms need to be used at what point. That's what I want to drive home in this opening part of the webinar. So contracts will probably make the most sense to everybody here. Contracts are a way where you can electronically have a client sign and have them lock in the terms and conditions of whatever service or product it is that you are offering. So instead of using like HelloSign or DocuSign or one of those other electronic contract platforms, you can use our contracts in here, send that out, and have a client sign on the contract. Sub-agreements, we're not going to dive into these today, but I will talk about what these are designed for. In projects in Dubsado, we talked about projects yesterday, you are only able to have 1 contract per project. It should be your main terms and conditions. Whatever your core terms and conditions are, that should be what a contract is, because you can only have 1 per project. If you would like the client to sign additional contracts, so maybe it's a waiver that you need them to sign, or a non-disclosure agreement, or maybe there's an amendment to a contract, anything along those lines, if it's a secondary contract or additional contract you need them to sign, sub-agreements are going to be what you would use there. In a project, you can have as many sub-agreements as you want to. So you can have 1 primary contract and as many sub-agreements as you want to. So if you want to do something, if you're in the design space and you want to do design proofs as sub-agreements, that's the best idea for it. If you want them to sign on each proof saying, no, I don't like this, can we change this, and sign it, and then send them another sub-agreement for them to okay the design, Sub-agreements are the perfect form to use that for. So that's what sub-agreements are. Questionnaires are going to be a way where you can collect information from a client that's regarding maybe feedback about how the project went. If you're trying to figure out more info about the project you're working on or the event they're doing, questionnaires are typically going to be longer forms where they need to fill out a lot of intricate details, maybe about the project or about maybe the session that you had with them, if you're a coach or something along those lines. So you can use this, as you can kind of see, I have some examples here. Maybe if we have enough time towards the end when we get done with the webinar, we can dive into some of these if you want to learn more. But you can send out progress reports to the client so they can type in how they're feeling about a session. You can do kickoff surveys. You can do wedding timelines. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with questionnaires. They're pretty open-ended. But questionnaires are going to be how you can collect information from a client that might be extensive about the project. Proposals. We're going to deep dive into proposals today, probably spend most of our time on proposals. Proposals are a way where you can pitch your pricing to a client. So if you were here yesterday, we talked about packages where you're creating all of your different services. Proposals are like the menu that you can put your packages on. So if we're thinking restaurant terms here, packages are your food items that you offer, and the proposal is the menu that you can put all of those on, and people can order from that proposal, or they can say, yes, I want this package and this add-on, or they can approve of the custom quote. And we'll get into all of that today. And then the last form is the lead capture form. And we're actually going to dive into that next. But what a lead capture form is designed to do is to bring people into Dubsado. And so without further ado, we're just going to dive right into lead capture forms. So you're able to see that. But to talk about lead capture forms and kind of understand where all of this fits, I want to take one step back and talk about our bootcamp goal that we had yesterday. So if you remember from yesterday, we said that we're really honing in on the interest and the decision and action that clients are going to make with you. And so with that being said, the three forms that we're zeroing in on today are lead capture forms, which those are responsible for the interest level when someone's interested in working with you. And then if they're going to make a decision or an action saying, yes, I want to purchase this product, or I want to sign with you and I want you to be the person who does this service, or I want to purchase your product, proposals and contracts are what you can use for that. So that's why those are the three forms that we're zeroing in on, and we're not going to spend really any time on sub-agreements or questionnaires, because those don't really zero in on getting you paid. Those are additional forms that you can use throughout your process. So that's why we're honing in on those. So now let's get into lead capture forms specifically, and we'll talk about this here. If you remember from yesterday, just another quick reminder, because it's really going to help solidify the importance of a lead capture form. Remember that Dubsado is designed in your business to capture and communicate and manage with clients from the moment that they're interested in working with you all the way until you provide that service. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that they're being brought into Dubsado the moment that they're interested in working with you. We want them to be set up with a project at that point. And what's really great about this is that lead captures make sure that they're coming into Dubsado when they're interested. That's the main purpose of what a lead capture form is designed to do. Bring them in the moment they're interested and get them set up with a project. So let's go ahead here and we're going to dive into lead capture forms. I'm going to jump back over to Dubsado and we're going to look at the lead capture forms, which is on the far right over here. So I already have one built here that we're going to look at, and it's just a simple website contact form. So before I dive into all these different things here, it's important to know that this form is designed to be put on a contact page on your website, or it can be put on your social media so people can hear about you or fill out information to find out more. That's the purpose of what this form is designed to do. So with that being said, a lead capture form should be capturing their basic contact information and whatever it is you need from them just to get them in the door. This is a little bit of business advice, if you will, but typically with a lead capture form, you don't want it to be too long, because if this is on your website or if this is on your social media platform and it takes somebody 15 minutes to fill out a form, they're going to move on and they're going to go find somebody else, or they're going to get distracted and go someplace else. So typically with a lead capture form, if I can give any advice for people who are building them right now, usually just try to have their basic contact information and whatever it is you need just to get them through the door. So there's not a lot of friction for them to get into Dubsado. And then if you do need to have more information, that's where questionnaires come into play. Once they're in the door, now you can send them maybe a fuller form that has more questions pertaining to the event or the service or product or whatever it is that you're trying to sell. So that's just a little bit of advice with the lead capture form. But let's talk about building this here and how you can build forms in Dubsado. So when I'm on this page here, the first thing we're going to talk about is the elements table over here on the left. We call them elements in Dubsado. And so here, if you see the little 4 boxes over on the left-hand side there, this is the element chart, not the elemental chart for science. We don't want to get into that, but for building forms. How you build forms in Dubsado is you have these different types of elements that you can use. So text boxes, images, short answers, free response boxes, date selects, all of these different elements, and you can click and drag them onto the form. So if I wanted to add, let's say, an image, I can click and drag and add this onto my form and upload an image onto the form. That's what I did up here with this kind of banner across the top there. If I want to, let's say, put in a text box, I can click and drag and put a text box on my form so I can write text in there. So just a quick 101 about building forms. All it is clicking and dragging elements into place. There is a lot of information on different design things that you can do. And like I said, after the webinar, if we want to talk about some styling things, we can definitely do that. But just at its core, when you build a form in Dubsado, it's all about clicking and dragging and putting those elements onto the form. Now, I won't go through every single element on here because there's just some specifically that I want to hone in on just for sake of time here. The first one, which is probably the most important one, is the short answer element. This is designed to capture brief single line responses. If you look up at the top here, I have some short answer boxes on this form. What this is designed to do, if I click into this first name short answer box, is you can use short answers to map client information into Dubsado. So here's what I mean by that. If I put this form on my website and I want someone to fill this out, if I put in Cameron on first name and Macbeth on last name and Cameron@dubsado.com for email, and I put in my phone number, what I want Dubsado to do is to create a client or capture project information to store on the back end so that I have all of that information in Dubsado. That's what it's designed to do with a short answer. How you map these is once you've added a short answer element onto the form here, when you click on it, you'll see in the bottom of this side panel that you can choose where their answer is going to map to in Dubsado. So for example, this box, I wanted it to be for first name. You can choose what you want the question to be. So I want to make sure when I click on this drop down that I'm assigning their answer to the specific field that it's going to map to on the back end. So basically, it's a matching game. I want first name to map to first name. If I click on last name, the box I have over here, I want that to map to last name. And if I click on email, same idea, it's going to map to the client email address, so on and so forth. So short answer boxes is if you're trying to collect information from a client to store on the back end, you can use these boxes here to do that, short answer boxes specifically. In Dubsado, there are two elements, and this is important to know here when it comes to capturing information. In Dubsado, there are two elements that we have where you can do this idea of mapping. The first one is the short answer, like what we just talked about. The second one is the date select. So if I'm trying to capture, let's say, a project date. So I am doing, this is a wedding inquiry form, and I want to know what their anticipated date of their wedding is. I can use a date select element, which I already have on the form here. And it says, what is the date of your event? If I click on this, you'll see that I'm able to map it to a specific date. So if I click on this, I can map it to the project date, and it becomes the project date in the project that gets created. So that is the idea of field mapping in Dubsado. It's using short answers and date selects to basically collect that information so it can build out the client on the back end. Hopefully that makes sense on how that works, but it's how you basically create a client in the system. So that is mapping client information. The other thing that I'll mention here is that with a lead capture form, at minimum, you need to have a first name, last name, and email. Those are all required on a lead capture form. And the reason for that is because Dubsado needs to have that information to create a client at bare minimum on the back end. So that is how you can actually build that client, is by capturing at minimum those three things. A question that we had yesterday was, I don't want to actually create clients or projects manually all the time. That's specifically what this form is designed to do, so that you don't have to do what we did yesterday, where anytime someone is interested in working with you, you go to the projects page, click create new project, put in the client info. We want to get away from doing that. The lead capture form is what will do that for you if you have it on your website or you have it on social media. Now, that brings me to my next point, sharing this form here. So let's say that I have my lead capture form ready to go. Everything's good. I have all the info that I need here. If I'm wanting to share this, what you're going to do is down here at the very bottom of the left-hand menu. So you have the 4 icons there. We're down at the bottom where it says sharing. When you click on this, it's going to give you 2 options to share this form. The first one is it gives you an embed code. This is perfect if you actually have a website where you're wanting to embed this form on your Wix site, on your Squarespace, on your WordPress, whatever it is that you want to use there. You can embed this on your contact page inside your web builder. So someone goes to your contact page, they see this form embedded, they fill out the information, and then it's going to automatically create that project in Dubsado. The other method, which is probably even more popular now, is using this direct link here. This direct link can be used anywhere. If I take this link and I copy it and I come up to the top up here and I paste it, it's going to open up this form and I can fill this out on my computer right now. So this link, this hyperlink, can go into an Instagram bio. It can go and be attached to a Pinterest board. It can be put, you can text message it to somebody. You could put it up on Facebook for people to get a hold of you. This link can literally be used anywhere. So it's become a lot more popular because people are using social media a lot more, obviously, versus just going to websites. So if you have that direct link, feel free to send that to anybody. They can fill out this form. And like I said, it's going to actually put them in Dubsado as a project. Now, let me save this here really quickly, and I'm going to talk about two more things, and then we'll move on to contracts. So with the lead capture form, just so visually you kind of get an idea of what's going on, I want to revisit the projects page that we talked about yesterday. We did a whole thing about projects. When someone fills out a lead capture form, it's going to create them and bring them over here into this leads area. So when you have someone fill it out, you should see projects getting created in this lead section. Then you can click into that project and start communicating with them by booking a consultation or sending a questionnaire to get more information, or maybe you just go straight to proposal, which we'll talk about today. So that is actually what happens on the back end once someone fills out that lead capture form. So hopefully that makes sense about the sequencing on how that works. It brings them in as a new lead for you. And then once you nurture that lead, they can eventually become a job project like we talked about yesterday. So that is the first thing that I wanted to talk about, lead captures. One more thing that I want to bring up before we move on to contracts. And this is kind of like an alert message or a heads up. If you are on a trial account with us, you will be maxed out at 3 clients. So if you're on a trial, you probably will notice an orange banner up across the top of your account that says you have 3 clients left or 2 clients left. Remember, in Dubsado, a client, we talked about it yesterday, a client is considered a contact. So any contacts that come into the system count as a client. So if you're on a trial, this includes people who fill out your lead capture form. So for example, if I took my form and I put it on Instagram right now and I was on a trial, once 3 people fill out that form, the form will not work anymore, and I'm going to miss out on all those leads that come into the system. So the reason I like to mention this is because if we do have somebody who's watching who is on a trial, I usually caution against posting this publicly, because we would hate for you to miss out on those leads and you didn't know that that's going to add 3 clients into the system and then you're maxed out. So usually from a public perspective, if you're going to embed it, or if it's going to go on Pinterest or social media, we usually recommend you being on a paid subscription with us, either starter or premier, it doesn't matter there. But as long as you're on a paid subscription, then you have unlimited clients. So that's just kind of a word of warning to anyone who's on a trial. We don't want you to miss out on those clients. So if you're going to share it publicly, sign up for a subscription first, so that way you don't miss out on any leads who are interested in working with you. So that's lead capture forms. The next thing that we're going to get into now are contracts. So let's dive over into Dubsado again, and we're going to go back to the template section, and we're going to go to forms, and we're going to look at the contract section here. And I'm going to pull up this wedding photography contract that I have. Now, I do want to say, when we're looking at the contracts and the proposals today, before I go any further in here, my plan is in the email that we send out to you that has the recording of this. And I'm also going to put this on YouTube as well in the description. My plan is to generate this template for you where you can add these into your account. We want to give you a place to start with, and obviously you'll be able to tweak it and customize it how you like it. But before we get into any of these forms today, my plan is to include these in the email that gets sent out with the recording, so you can add these to your account. So you can start from scratch if you want to. That's totally fine if you just really want to experiment and build your own form. But my plan is to have these available for you, so at least you have a starting point here. So with this form, we'll talk about contracts here. With contracts, there's going to be 3 primary elements that you're most likely going to be using on a contract. The first one is pretty simple. You're going to need a text box. And the reason that you need a text box is because you need to put your terms and conditions in there, of course, right? You want people to know what they're signing off on. So text boxes are going to be key with your contracts. The other thing that you're going to use, the other element that you're going to use as well, are initials elements. Now, something that's really special about contracts and sub-agreements are that both of those forms can use signatures and they can use initials elements. No other forms in Dubsado can use those, only contracts and only sub-agreements. Those are the only two forms that can use those. So over here on the left-hand side, what you'll notice, they're side by side here in the menu. You have a place where they can initial, and then you have another place where they can actually sign. And tomorrow, we're going to look at what this looks like on the client end and how to fill it out, what the client's going to see, how it looks on your end. We're going to get into all of that tomorrow. Today is just about building it out. So with the initials element, you'll see that I have one here in this, underneath these services, I have an initial section here. And you can make it required if you want to. That way they have to initial. Another great reason maybe, and this might not pertain to everyone, but maybe you want them to initial after every single clause that you have. That's why you would want to have, let's say, a text box, then an initials element, then another text box, then an initials element. So that's kind of a practical thing if you want to make sure that they're paying attention and saying, hey, initial after every single clause and then sign at the bottom. So initials are going to be really crucial for you. And then the last element, of course, probably the most important, is the signature area where the client can actually electronically sign on the contract. So if we scroll down here further, you'll notice that I have a space for the client to sign, and I also have a space for the business owner to sign. Tomorrow, we're going to get into counter-signing contracts. So if you're a business owner that wants to counter-sign on contracts, we'll talk about that tomorrow when we get into the whole client experience of things. But I've added some initials elements onto this form here, and people are able to put in first name, last name, and initial. Now, how this tracks is it actually tracks the IP address of the computer that's being used. So on the back end, that's how we can legally determine that this is a bona fide contract, is just like some of the other platforms out there, we track the IP address of where this form is being filled out. So here, with a signature area element, obviously you would want that to be required so that they have to sign off on the contract. But the other important thing here is that you can determine when you add a signature area element onto your form, when you click on it, you can determine if you want this signature to be for the client to sign off on, or if you want it to be for you as the business owner to sign off on. So on this one, I'm having it be for the client to sign. And then when I come down to this one, I have it as the owner. And you can tell because this big yellow banner is above the signature, when you're building a form, that you'll see that big yellow banner there, not on the client's end when they're actually filling it out, just on the back end here. That's how you can distinguish, oh, this is a client signature area, this is a business owner area. So that's how you can differentiate there. So with contracts, they're pretty straightforward. You're going to mainly use those three elements: text boxes for all of your terms and conditions, initials if you need them, and then also you're going to be using signature area elements for people to sign off on. Something that I do want to mention about signatures before we move on to proposals is that right now we don't recommend having multiple signatures on a contract if you are the client. And here's the reason why. Because of the fact that it's tracking the IP address on the particular form, if two people are filling it out on the same computer, there's not a way to tell, okay, person A signed this one and person B signed this one. Right now, we don't have a way to tell that. And the other reason is because when you submit a contract, and this is going to be a little bit more discussed tomorrow, but when you sign a contract, the contract locks and you're not able to go in and make adjustments. This is a security reason because we want to make sure that once a contract is signed, people don't go in and edit the terms. So if person A signs the contract and submits it, then person B would not be able to go in and sign that contract. So typically what I recommend doing, at least for right now, until we introduce multiple signatures, is have person A sign the main contract, make a copy of that contract as a sub-agreement, and have person B sign the sub-agreement to the same terms and conditions. That way you have both of them in the project together and both of the same terms and conditions. Until we can introduce multiple signatures, that's usually my recommended method on how to handle multiple signatures. But I did want to mention that because it's usually a question that we get quite a bit with contracts. So those are contracts. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about here are proposals. And we'll spend a little bit more time on proposals because if you recall from yesterday, when we were building our packages out, we talked about people who typically have standardized pricing. And so they have the typical bronze, silver, gold, platinum packages. And so they have multiple things that they have as offerings. Then we also have the other group of people who do completely custom work. And if you are in that camp, you still want to use a proposal. And we're going to look at both of those options today. We're going to start with the standardized pricing, and then we're going to talk about the custom pricing. Then tomorrow, I'm going to talk about sending and editing those before they go out to a client in both circumstances. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So we'll talk about both buckets here. So with the proposal, let's go back to the forms section. Again, we're just kind of hanging out in this forms area today. So we'll go back to this page here. Now, the first one that we're going to look at, like I said, are the standardized packages. So let's jump in here and let's talk about this proposal. Now, before I get into this, remember, I'm going to be planning on trying to send this out to you in the follow-up email so you can copy these into your account and so you can kind of play around with it. But let's talk about the proposal from kind of a, I don't want to use the word metaphysical, but kind of a metaphysical perspective. Proposals are designed to pitch your pricing to a client. If someone says, hey, I want to work with you, your proposal is your billboard. It's how you are bragging about yourself. It's how you're showing off about yourself. It's how you can capture the client's attention. And in another word, really suck them in and draw them in so that way they want to work with you. So proposals are meant to be designed and highlighted, showing your strengths, showing maybe your pictures if you're a photographer, your designs if you're a designer, if you have testimonials that you want to put on here of people who have worked with you in the past. That's the purpose of a proposal. You want it to be visually appealing so someone gets this and says, wow, I really want to work with this person. They seem great to work with. So on this proposal, what I have here, and you'll be able to put this on yours, is I have a picture here where you could drop in, let's say, a picture of yourself on there. And then I also have a section over here, which is a text box that I'm using that you can put in, all the different information about the bio and all of that good stuff there. So that's specifically how that works. The main thing that I want to talk about with proposals, and like I said, we can talk about some design things once the webinar is over. With the actual proposals here, what the main purpose of them is, like I said before, is to take your packages and put them on the proposal. You want to send this out and have somebody say, yes, I want this package or I want this package. So on this form, how you can do that is you can use the package element. Now, packages are strictly for proposals. You cannot put packages on other forms like a contract or a sub-agreement. You can't put packages on there. You can only use packages on proposals. Those two things go together. So what I can do here, and this is what you will end up doing with your forms, is you can take this package element and you can click and drag and add it to your form. So I clicked, I drug it over onto the form, and now what you're going to see is I can select from packages that I've created. If you remember from yesterday when we were adding packages to invoices, this probably looks very familiar here because we have our packages built out. So I can choose here which package is going to go with the select button that I have in this form. So I have my elopement. I have my traditional classic signature. So I think we need the, let's see, essential package. So if I click essential, that's going to give me an essential package. Now, it's probably difficult to see the information that's in here. That's because I've kind of customized the text and whatnot. But what you're able to do is when you have a package element, you can kind of customize the text. I have a background image behind it, so it's a little bit tougher to see here. But you can go in and you can edit what all of this looks like. So if you want to change the color, which I'm going to do here, so you can kind of see, what this is doing is this is pulling in package information. So before I move any further ahead, I want to make sure that I explain what you're seeing here so that it kind of sinks in. What you're seeing are what are called smart fields. And in Dubsado, the concept of a smart field is that it's pulling information from a certain place. So up at the top, how you saw that I had this smart field that says hello client first name. If you have the client's first name, you can pull that information onto the form so you're not customizing their name on every single form. Smart fields is kind of this whole other concept in Dubsado that we won't really deep dive into today. But when you see this package name and you see the package total and the 100 currency, those two smart fields are pulling in the package name and they're pulling in how much the package is. So if I click the checkbox to stop editing this package element, you'll see that it's pulling in essential package and it's pulling in $1,800 because that's the name of the package and that is the price of the package. When you edit a package element here, you can use other package smart fields if you want to. We're going to talk about a different one here when we move to custom proposals, but you can put in the package name, you can put in the item names and amounts, you can put in the item names and descriptions, you can put in the quantity, you can even use check boxes for people to select their items instead of select buttons. So there's a lot of different things that you can do as far as customization with proposals and actually putting different things in with your packages. But that is what a smart field is it's pulling in whatever information is available. So that's why you see that there. You don't have to use package smart fields if you don't want to. If I want to come in here and I just want to write in essential package and I can hit return and it's $1,800. So let's say I just put in 1,800. You can type this in if you want to as well. Put a 1 there. You can type in here if you want to as well. So all of these things, I can bold this. And then let's say I want to increase the font to, we'll just say 20 to make it a little bigger, maybe 24, I think, so it'll match the other ones. So you can play around with this and you can actually customize it to look how you want it to. You don't have to use smart fields if you don't want to, but that's just a quick way that if you just want to pull in the package name, pull in the information, you can do that there. And then when you're done, you can just click the checkbox and it'll be locked in. When I send this out to a client, they'll be able to select these packages. And we're going to get into that tomorrow when we talk about actually sending this out to a client and what they're going to be doing there. Now, I know this looks a little different. It's not really centered. And the anal part of me is wanting all this to look perfect right now, but we're just going to use this right now just so you can see what it looks like. So you can add as many packages as you want to onto your proposal here. You can have as many as you want to. And if we move further down here, you'll see where I have a section and it's just a simple text box and it says choose any add-ons. Now, yesterday, again, with packages, we talked about how everything that you create under packages, the a la carte items, the add-ons, the main packages, all of these things, they're all considered packages. So even though I have written here, choose any add-ons, it's really just pulling from the packages. So if I come in here and I want to edit, which you can also select your packages over in this panel here if you want to, when I'm selecting from my packages, it's all the same thing here. Even though it says add-ons, they're all packages at the end of the day. So I can assign all of these things to my proposal. And that's really at the very core of what you're doing with your proposals. If you're in the standard package area, you're going to go in and you're just going to add your packages in here. Maybe you only have 3, maybe you only have 2 to choose from. Maybe you have more than what I have here, but you're adding your packages onto the proposal. And then once you send this out, they'll be able to kind of build their own invoice essentially of what it is that they're wanting to purchase. That at the end of the day is what a proposal is designed to do. Now, something else that I'm going to show you, this is probably going to make the chat go crazy, but something else that you can do that's really fun, I'll just talk about it here since we're already on it, is you can also add GIFs onto your form to kind of spice it up and make it more fun. Once the webinar is over, I'll come back and maybe explain a little bit more about this, but there's a lot of really fun stuff that you can do with proposals to make them stand out to your clients. So it's not just maybe like a flat white Word document proposal and you just send that out and then they just say, yes, this looks good. You can really customize these proposals to stand out to your clients. So that is how to use a standard package proposal. You're just adding your packages onto the proposal. Now, let's move over to the custom proposal. This one is not going to be as elaborate. You can use essentially the same proposal design and just use it as a custom package. But I want to use the catering example that we talked about yesterday. Remember, we had that base catering package, and then we want to use this for, let's say, a catering company with a proposal. So if there's a wedding that's happening and they're looking for a catering company, you can send out your proposal to them and say, hey, we would love to work with you. We talked on the phone. This is what we think is going to be best for you. Please fill out this proposal so you can get locked in. So I'm going to click on this catering proposal here. And this is going to be very, very simple because remember, with a custom proposal or even a custom package, all you're doing is you're having one package, just one. It's going to be your base placeholder package that we talked about yesterday. And then what you're going to be able to do is once you work with different clients, you can customize the proposal for each one. You can take this base template, and once it goes into the project, you can customize it per project without messing with this base template that you have here. That's a little bit of foreshadowing for tomorrow, but you're kind of understanding here how that works. So with the custom proposal, like I said, you're only going to have one package, and that's going to be your base package that you're going to build off of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, remember, this is just a package element on the form. I just put a package element on there. I'm going to add that catering base package that we built yesterday. So when I add that in here, what you're going to see pop up is you're going to see all of the package details and information from that package that we built. How I'm doing this is I'm using a different smart field than what we were using on the previous proposal. On that previous one, we were using the package name and we were using the package total, whatever the total amount is. On this one, if I click the pencil icon here, I'm using the package smart field, item names and amounts. If you are wanting to generate sort of this invoice looking quote, kind of like what you just saw there, where everything is kind of itemized out, you can see the price of everything. It's laid out really nice for your client. This smart field is going to be your bread and butter if you're using custom proposals, because if you use this one, then it's going to look like this on there. And I think I accidentally added multiples. I did. There's also one down here as well. My apologies. I just added a separate one. But if you have that one up there, that's the one that was originally there, then you're going to get sort of this invoice look where everything is broken down. And then, like I said, pushing this forward, once this goes into a project, I'll be able to customize all of what you're seeing here for that particular client. And it's not going to affect this base template here. Your base template should always be your starting point. Then once it's in a project, you can customize freely. So hopefully that kind of concept makes sense there. The other smart field that I'm using is, you can see I wrote in total, and then I'm using that invoice total smart field. So down at the bottom here, you'll see that it has the total put in there depending on what is in this particular package right now. It's going to show that total for the client. The other thing that I'm going to mention with the custom proposal, usually with custom proposals, again, we're going to kind of zoom out and go metaphysical for a second and kind of talk business. Usually with custom proposals, when you send it out to a client, they might not say, this is what I want. They might look at the price, or they might look at the stuff that you have in the description and say, this doesn't look great. I actually want to make some changes to this. If that is the case, what you want to have on your proposal, and you see it down here, is you want the client to email you with their changes that they want. You don't want them to submit this proposal, because what you're going to see tomorrow is that if they submit the proposal, it's going to make an invoice for them. They might be taken to the contract to sign, and they might not be ready for that yet. So this is kind of a key thing if you are making a custom proposal, is we usually recommend at the bottom of your proposal, or you can put it anywhere on here, if there are changes that you would like to see made, just send us an email and we can rework your actual quote. And again, tomorrow I'll show you how you can rework everything in here and then send it back out. If they're ready, then they can actually click the submit button and proceed forward. So I usually like to, just as a recommendation, put that in your proposal somewhere if you're doing custom work, because 9 times out of 10, they'll probably be like, actually, I want to change this, or can we get rid of this? I want to see the pricing on this. And so you might have to send this form out to them a few times until it's just right. So that's kind of just a little bit of information for you, just from working with a lot of different people. That's something that I've noticed that really helps. So to break all of this down, and then we're going to get into the homework here, and then we'll open it up for questions with the Q&A. The main thing here is that with your standard packages, you're still using those package elements, and you're adding all of your individual services and a la carte items on there. If you're doing a quote proposal or a quote, a custom quote here, you're only using one package, and we're using the base template that we talked about yesterday, and that's all that's going to go on here. So you can customize it per client. Now, you could have multiple proposals. You don't have to have just one. Maybe I have a catering proposal that is for company events, and there's a certain package that I have in there that's strictly the pricing for companies or corporate events. Or maybe I do catering for sports teams or something like that. In that case, maybe I have a completely different proposal with a different custom package in there that has a different description in there as well. So try not to think about it as I can only have one proposal and I have to be locked into this. You can have multiple proposals if you want to. So that's just to kind of unlock a few ideas. If you say, okay, well, I do these different types of events, they're all custom work, but maybe I'll make a different proposal for my different types of catering that I do if you want to do it that way. Or you could have one generic template and edit it each time as well. So a lot of different options you can do there. Same thing with the standard package proposals. If you have, let's say, a proposal for anniversaries that you do, and that has certain packages on it, and then you have a wedding proposal and that has different packages and pricing on it, you can have different ones and then send out the right one to the client. So you are free to have multiple there. So the last thing that we're going to get into, and then I will open it up for questions. I just want to make sure that I have gotten through everything in my notes here. The homework for today, we didn't really get into the homework yesterday. We ran a little bit over time. The homework for today is 3 things. 1, create your lead capture form. 2, create your contract. And 3, create your proposal. You'll want to get those 3 things together. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about actually how to send all of this out to the client, how to test the forms, how to make sure that everything looks good before you send it out. We'll talk about customizing things before you send it. All of that good stuff will be discussed tomorrow. And then by the end of the day tomorrow, you'll be able to take all of these things and send it out to a client and get paid, which is the main goal of this boot camp.